Is it real, Clint? That's what they want to know. Is it real? Is it real, Clint? Is it real? Is it real? Hey, you guys should know, everything I do is real. I only do real. I'm the real thing. Everything I do is real. And that is why today's Sunset Story is not sponsored by, but is refreshed by Coca-Cola con Cafe. That's right, Coca-Cola con Cafe. You know I love this stuff. I only drink it when I'm doing the Sunset Stories because it's a real indulgence. It's like real sugar, azúcar, as they say here in Mexico. And, you know, it really takes me back to my drinking days because that's as close as I get to drinking a Guinness nowadays. Let's see how it goes. Oh, baby. And it's just like Guinness. Oh. Is it real, Clint? Is it real? Yeah, baby. That's real. And that's real. Everything I do is real. You should know that. Everything I do is real. This is real hair. It's looking good. Hey everybody, it's Clint Arthur, and I'm coming to you live from the new crib in Mexico. And today's Sunset Story is about the front runner. Yeah, he's winning in the polls. He's going to win the election. If the election were today, he would win. His name is Joe Biden, and this story is about Joe Biden. How did I meet Joe Biden? Well, those of you who know my story, you know that on December 31st, 1999, where were you? Were you? And in the backseat of my cab that night were these two MBA interns who were interns at Goldman Sachs. And I'm listening in on their conversation, and one of them goes, "Hey man, did you hear about Mr. Carrera? They made him the last partner right before the Goldman IPO, and he cashed out $1 gazillion. And I'm like, "Hey, you guys talking about Chris Carrera? How do you know Mr. Carrera?" Chris Carrera was a pledge in my fraternity. When I was the pledge master, I used to make those little punks dance around the living room of the house with their tighty whities on top of their heads. And now he just cashed out $1 gazillion. And I made $513 that night driving the cab on New Year's Eve of the millennium. Shortly after that, I'm on the phone with my fraternity brother, and he tells me, "Hey man, are you coming to the party?" I'm like, "What party?" This is like a couple months later. "What party?" He goes, "Chris Carrera is throwing a party at the Four Seasons on Park Avenue in New York for all the fraternity brothers." And I'm like, I never heard anything about that party. Then I talked to my dad shortly after that. And I go, "Yeah, my fraternity brother's throwing a big party in New York at the Four Seasons on Park Avenue." And my dad goes, "Are you going?" And I go, "I can't go to that party. I'm a freaking taxi driver. All those guys are millionaires." I found out some of my fraternity brothers had already become billionaires. He goes, "Listen, if you want to go to that party, you just let me know. I'll pay your airfare. I'll pay your hotel. You should really go to that party." I'm like, "Dad, I can't go to that party. I'm a cab driver." Now we fast forward. We fast forward to the year that photo, you see that photo of me on my Facebook page with Joe Biden? We fast forward to that year. That was like February of 2014. And by February of 2014, I was a different person. You know, Tony Robbins says you could do anything in like 10 years. Well, it took me longer than 10 years. It took me about 12 years till I really made it. And by January of 2014, I had already gone on the Today Show. I was interviewed by Brooke Shields, and I had done pretty well for myself. I was Dan Kennedy's Info Marketer of the Year. I was a different person at that point. And I was so much of a different person that in the photo of me with Joe Biden, you see I got a totally shaved head, right? That's because that was after one of my hair transplants. Yeah. That was after my first hair transplant. So you know I had already made it if I was having hair transplants. What happens is my dad unfortunately passed away in 2006. And by 2014, I had come into my own and I had started Celebrity Launchpad. And I had been on 57, 58, 60 television appearances. And all of a sudden I hear there's going to be another one of those parties thrown by Chris Carrera at the Four Seasons restaurant on Park Avenue. Another one. And you know I'm going to that one. And I remember one of the things that I took with me. See, like you guys know, I make these magazines to show my status to customers and prospects, right? Well, you know, I can't go to a party with the magazines. You know, I can't be walking around. Sorry about that. Let's go back here. I can't be walking around at a party handing out magazines of myself, right? So I made these little business cards. And the business card was a screenshot of me on the Today Show and my GKIC Info Marketer of the Year laurels superimposed on top of that, and some testimonials on the back, and my phone number. I remember that was a really good business card that I had for a long time. And I had those business cards in my pocket, and those I was giving out, right? And it was at that party that let me just keep going here on this. So I go to New York for that party, and I'm staying at my favorite hotel, Le Parker Meridien, just a few blocks away up on 57th Street or 58th Street. Love that hotel. This is when I first started really getting into using Starwood points. And I had hit platinum, and I was like using Starwood, and the Parker Meridien Hotel Le Parker Meridien in New York City was like a deal. It was like 10,000 points for a night, and they always upgraded me into a nice suite. So I was staying there a lot in those days. And there's a couple funny things that happened, right? So I go to this party, and as I'm arriving, I see there's metal detectors and Secret Service agents checking people in, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, Joe Biden's gonna be here. Joe Biden's gonna be here. I'm like, what? Yeah, Joe Biden's gonna be here. Why was Joe Biden at this party? No, he's not a fraternity brother, but his son, Beau Biden, you know, his son who died of brain cancer, he was one of our fraternity brothers from my chapter at the University of Pennsylvania. You know, the Biden Center at the University of Pennsylvania. See what I'm saying? Joe Biden's son was one of our fraternity brothers. And he had died like a year before or 2 years before. And so Joe Biden came to this party thrown by Chris Carrera at the Four Seasons restaurant in New York City. Everybody had to be cleared, go through the metal detectors, get cleared by the Secret Service. And then it's like 400 brothers, a lot of them brought dates or wives at the Four Seasons, open bar, waiters walking around with hors d'oeuvres, oysters. It was like one of the most lavish parties I've ever attended, especially where it was at the Four Seasons restaurant in New York City. I mean, that party had to cost at least $100,000. You know, Phil Timon, one of our brothers is Phil Timon. And after, I'll get to what what Joe Biden said in a second, but like Phil Timon's bar tab alone had to be $1,000. Phil Timon, God bless him. I will talk more about him, but he had to have drank at least $1,000 worth of alcohol that night, like he would do every time. And I owe a lot to Phil Timon. If it wasn't for Phil Timon, I never would have gone into entrepreneurship at the Wharton Business School. So thank you, Phil Timon. Anywho, Joe Biden comes, and we're all like milling about and talking to people, schmoozing, eating, drinking, and about, say, 9 o'clock, and there's Joe Biden, and he walks out. 2014, he's vice president of the United frickin' States of America at this time. And he comes out and he talks to us, and he gave a 30-minute speech, and I videotaped the whole speech and posted it on YouTube. If you look on my YouTube channel, you will see the whole Joe Biden speech. And like, you know, if you like search on YouTube, Clint Arthur, Joe Biden, you'll see the whole speech, I'm pretty sure. So I'm standing like 6 feet away from Joe Biden the whole time, and I'm listening to his talk, and I'm videotaping the talk. And then as soon as he's done talking, and he's a great speaker in those days. He really was moving and genuine and extemporaneous and cool. I really, really liked him a lot. And as soon as he's done speaking, everybody's like, they don't know what to do. What do? Boom, I go right up to him and I go, "Could I get a quick selfie, sir?" And he goes, "Sure." And click, I take that selfie. And then I turn to him and I said, "Mr. Vice President, what's the most important thing you ever learned?" Because that's my question. I ask that to everybody. And he thinks for a second and he goes, "You know, a lot of stuff is going to try to stop you in your life. You got to keep going. Because if you keep going, eventually you're going to win." And hey, those are very prophetic words. Today, after how many tries, after how many elections, after how many campaigns, he's finally the front runner and the presumptive Democratic nominee. Huh. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. After that was over, he leaves. And the Secret Service goes with him, and he goes out the door. I was the only person who got a selfie with him that night. What's that tell you? And then they open up this big ballroom, and Phil Timon takes a whole bottle of Old Grandad, and he goes up on the balcony above the ballroom. And I watched motherfucking Phil Timon pull $500,000 in donations out of the audience of brothers. And I don't know how the hell he did it, because he wasn't even, like, it's not like you were getting anything. You didn't get anything for your donation. Somehow he just goes up there and he starts talking and drinking and and like, I don't know if he was slugging from the bottle or if he just had a big glass, but he did take the whole bottle of Old Grandad, which is our fraternity's, like, you know, traditional cocktail. And I watched that badass motherfucker, Phil Timon, just keep hitting the room, calling and prodding and prodding. And I swear to God, I watched him pull a whole collection of brothers into donating more than $500,000 to the fraternity to fix up our fraternity chapter house in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania. They call it the construction fund for the castle. Our fraternity is called the Castle. And I swear to God, it was one of the most impressive things. Enjoyed this Sunset Story. I do expect that I will be back again tomorrow night, coming here from the new crib in Acapulco at 7:30 p.m. Good night, everybody.